How's it going? It's Nathan Hawken here, and welcome to the video. One of the biggest reasons why many high performers, high performing leaders tend to stay stuck where they are isn't a lack of vision. It's the overwhelming gap between their big dream and their current reality. And what if I told you that the solution isn't to start dreaming smaller? It's to start smarter. This feeling of being stuck, this typically comes from when you start to dream bigger. And those dreams, those visions of a future reality that you want to create are so big that they create a paralysis inside you rather than actually some progress to move towards it. In over a decade, I've been working with high-performing leaders, entrepreneurs, senior executives, former Olympic athletes, other coaches as well. And I've seen many brilliant people really abandon amazing and incredible goals for themselves, these huge goals that they want to have for themselves, because they can't see or build a bridge from their current reality to that big dream, that big goal. And that's why today I'm going to be talking about the minimum viable dream framework to help you start to build that bridge towards where you want to be from where you are now. Before we get into that, we need to first understand the problem, because how can we possibly come up with a solution if we don't really understand the problem first? When you're feeling stuck like this, when you feel like there's a paralysis which is set in, once you've seen your vision clearly, you've thought about what you want and ideas come to mind, and this big dream or vision has come to you, but the gap really feels unsurmountable. Like there's such a big difference between where you are now and what you want to have that it feels like you're probably never going to get there. And you might be feeling like the right time to actually get started or get the resources, get the time, get the clarity, whatever it may be. So you're feeling stuck at the moment. You're feeling like you need to wait till the right time. And the small steps that you need to take in order to get to where you want to go feel insignificant compared to the magnitude of the entire goal in itself. And so you're feeling stuck between settling for less now and feeling overwhelmed by the possibility of more in the future. Why does this happen? This happens because there can be an all or nothing type of mentality or thinking where if I can't do it properly, then I won't do it all. If it's not going to be perfect, I'm not even going to try. Or maybe there's the illusion of resources or lack of resources, such as, you know what, I need X, Y, and Z before I can even get started. I need to make sure I've got this first before I even attempt to get moving on my goals. Or there may even be that perfectionist trap, like it has to be perfect or it's not worth doing. I mean, if this isn't going to be perfect, then I'm not even going to attempt it. And a very common type of paralysis for your goals is when you're comparing yourself to everyone else. When you look at everyone else's what they're doing and you're looking at the goals that they're looking to achieve, and you say to yourself, you know what? Everyone else just seems way further ahead than me. Always comparing yourself to the other people around you, the goals that they're working on, and it always feels like everyone else is way ahead of where you are right now. But we have to look at the cost of this to you, the hidden cost, because this type of thinking, this type of paralysis, this feeling of being stuck, this is actually costing you in financially, personally, spiritually. It's costing you in your role, in your business, because your dreams start to get deferred or even abandoned when you start to think, when you tap into something inside yourself and it's giving you guides to move towards a bigger dream or a bigger vision for yourself, but you're feeling like you're stuck in this type of paralysis. This means you're actually halting your dreams. You're pausing them for a while, maybe even abandoning them because you can't see how to get to it from where you currently are. By waiting for those perfect conditions or waiting for the resources before you start taking steps forward, that can actually lead to waiting forever and never actually getting to the point where you're moving towards this dream and this vision that you have. I'm going to talk a little bit more about compounding later, but let's reverse it for a second, because the small steps that you're not taking actually compound into major regrets later on. I mean, how many times have you not done something even though you know you should have, not taken a small step towards something, only in 3 months time, 6 months time, you look back with nothing but regret because you think about where you could actually be right now if you'd taken those steps. But the biggest cost to you is your current reality becomes a permanent default. Nothing changes. When there's no changes, there's no growth, there's no goal achievement, and there's no satisfaction or fulfillment. But what if there was a different way to think about it? In the world of tech and technology, and even in business, there's a minimum viable product, like the simplest version of the system, the platform, the product that we can deliver that adds value to people and that we can sell. So I want you to think about your minimal viable dream, the smallest version of your vision that still moves you towards the meaningful output. So to come up with your minimal viable dream, let's start to ask a couple of quick questions. Let's distill your vision down into actionable steps. What is the essence of what you want? So think about your big dream and go beyond just the surface level stuff. So don't just think about the end result. Think about the feeling that you're going to have when you achieve it. Think about the impact that you're going to make by having this vision and achieving this dream. Think about the experience that you're going to have by starting where you are and achieving that dream. So you might have a massive financial goal or a business goal. Say, I want to create a $10 million business. Cool. So if you're distilling that down, think of it something like, I want to create a meaningful impact while having financial freedom. So it's not just about the end result. We're distilling it down with your feeling, your impact, your experiences along the way. Once you've distilled your vision down and you've answered the question of what's the essence of what you really want, then we have to do an audit. It's an audit on your current reality to see where you are right now. And a simple question to that is, well, what do I actually have right now? What time do I have? What skills do I have? What connections do I have? What resources do I have? Then look at what's really constraining you now. Identify your constraints which you currently have. So what are your real limitations right now versus the assumed limitations? I mean, we're talking about the real ones here. What are your real limitations versus the assumed limitations? Because if you dig down deep enough, you'll find that some of the limitations that you have, they're not real. They're made up, they're in your head, you're putting them on yourself, and there's definitely ways around them. So we need to understand what are your real limitations versus your assumed limitations that you have. Then you look at your strength inventory and you ask yourself, what advantages do I actually have that I'm not leveraging right now? Really understand what advantages you do have right now that you're not currently using, you're not leveraging for the steps that you need to take to move towards your goal. Now, this is one of my favorite parts. We need to identify the bridge to get from where you are now, the distilled vision, the reality that you currently live in, to where you want to be. This is something I help my clients with all the time when they're starting to dream bigger and they want to start moving towards their next level. What's the smallest meaningful step towards your vision that you can take right now? What's the smallest step? We're not talking about a leap forward. We're not talking about a quantum leap or anything like that. We are talking about what is one and the smallest step that you could possibly take that's meaningful towards your vision. Then look at your resources. What's the minimum amount of resources that you need right now to take that step? It could be, I need to set up an email account, which would be crazy because most people tend to have one already. I need to set up an email account so I can start sending emails. I need to get a CRM. I need to reach out to someone. I need to do a small business plan, whatever it is. But what is the minimum that you need right now to take that step? Like, do you need to get a CRM? Do you need to set up an email account? Do I need a phone? Like, it could be something as simple as that. So think about what are the minimum resources that you need to take that step. Then we have to quickly look at the reality of the time that you have or the timeline you have right now. And you ask yourself, how long would this actually take? Not how long do I think it should take, but how long will this actually take to do this one step using the resources that I currently have? Now that we have all that information, we can start to look at your minimum viable dream and design it the way that's going to suit you best. So let's look at the specific outcome first. What would success look like at this level? What would success look like at this level? Start to understand what it would look like for you to have that minimum viable dream. Then to look at your progress and measure your progress along the way. You ask yourself, well, how will I know that I'm advancing? What will you need to know to understand that you're actually advancing, you're moving forward? How will you know that you're advancing? Then understand an achievable time frame and ask yourself, what's realistic given your current circumstance? So right now, in my current circumstances, with the resources I have, exactly where I am now, what is a realistic time frame given where I'm at right now? This is a time where we can tend to fudge it and overestimate the timeline, but realistically, Give it some honest thought, and realistically, what is a time frame that would work best? Then you can ask yourself something really important, which is about the relevant impact that you're going to have. And ask yourself, how is this one step with the resources I've got, the realistic time frame, how does this connect to my bigger vision? How does all this connect to my bigger vision? Because you can see now we've taken the pressure off from the big, audacious, crazy dream that you're focused towards, $10 million business, $20 million business. And from where you are now, you can already see that by creating a minimum viable dream, that you've taken the pressure off the big outcome, the big goal, and you're focusing more on what's the minimum I can do now. What's happening here is that you're creating momentum, you're creating progress, you're taking action, and you're doing the work. Now that you have this, you can start your implementation strategy. And so you set yourself your daily and your weekly actions. So what can you consistently do with your current schedule? With your timeline right now, with everything else you've got going on, what can you do consistently with your current schedule? Then how will you track and celebrate that progress? What can you set up, very briefly, just so you can track what you're doing and you can celebrate your progress at the completion of every task? It might be sending 5 emails today. It might be making 10 calls tomorrow. It might be by the end of this week I've done X. But how can you track that? Then how can you make sure that you're celebrating and you're giving yourself that satisfaction, that reward as you go? Then lastly, how are you going to build upon this? Now that you're taking action, you've got your minimum viable dream, you're working towards it, how can you then build upon it? Because remember, there's no growth if we're not pushing ourselves. So how are you going to build upon that success? This is a big question for you, but it's a really important one to ask yourself, because once you start implementing everything consistently, that becomes the new normal for you. We now need to build upon that to help prevent any future stagnation and paralysis when it comes up. So how are you going to build upon this success that you've created now that you have a minimum viable dream? By going through this process and doing this, creating an MVD, minimum viable dream, this is why it works for you. Those small wins will create more confidence in your work and more confidence into your bigger dream. And each level provides more resources for you to get to your next level, whether it's resources and skills, whether it's time resources. But by going through it, you're creating more resources for you to help you to get to that next level. You're developing the skills and the insights that you need simply through doing the work. These skills, these insights are going to serve you in your next level. And this is how we start to really build that momentum. The more you do it, the more you're building habits. The more you're building habits, the more support you're creating for yourself for your long-term success. So as a couple of examples for you, just before we finish up, of what a minimum viable dream could look like for you, then maybe you want to be a speaker, but you've never done it before. So maybe you just start with one internal presentation in your current work or wherever it may be, but maybe that's the minimum viable dream. Instead of being like a multi-million-dollar speaker, and that's what you're doing full time, you start with, okay, I'm just going to do one internal presentation somewhere. And then you can start creating your tasks and resource around that. I don't know, maybe you want to write a book. So maybe you just start with one article per month that you publish somewhere. Maybe it's in a blog or something like that. Maybe you want to scale your business. So you start with, okay, well, I'm just going to implement one new system or one new process that's going to help me do that. Maybe you want to change careers. So that's your big goal. I want to change careers. I got no idea what it is just yet, but I want to be in a better position, make more money or whatever it may be. So start with, okay, well, I want to change careers. My minimum viable dream would be, I'm going to start working on one skill development. I'm going to work on one skill or one new network connection per week. So you see how it works. It takes the pressure off the big dream and focuses more into something that's actionable, that's realistic, that you can do right now. Most people will tend to overestimate what they can do in 1 year and really underestimate what they can do in 5 years. And so by having this minimum viable dream, it bridges the gap between the two. So as a challenge to yourself, here's what I'd like you to do now. Take your big dream that you've been postponing, take your big vision that you've been struggling to think about, and run it through this framework. Sit down and write down the essence of what you really want, not just the surface goals. Then list what you actually have available to you right now in terms of resources. Then identify the smallest meaningful step that you could possibly take this week and create a minimum viable dream based around that step. Make it specific, make it measurable, make it achievable. But do it now. Take one action toward that every single day for the next 7 days. Then track your progress on a small piece of paper somewhere or on your laptop. Even the small steps count, and notice how the momentum builds once you start implementing this. Just remember that the goal isn't to start small and stay small. It's to start smart and build systematically. That's what this will do for you. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate you watching it all to the end. If you like my content and you find it valuable, I'll ask please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and hit the notification as well. Also share it if you know someone that might find this valuable. If you'd like any further help with anything I've spoken about, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a chat. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.